Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It is a lovely, humid day here in suburban Chicago. The weather is in the, I would say, mid 80s, probably going to get up into the 90s today. It's nice and humid. I should say, oppressively humid. It's not Florida humid, but, for Illinois, this is about as humid as it gets. And I'm going for a walk anyway, because I'm trying to get back into that podcasting rhythm. So today, as I mentioned last week, my wife and I took a trip to Portland to celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary. And I thought I would tell you about my trip to Portland, but this is a board games podcast, so I'm going to frame it this way. The top 5 games I played in Portland. So I put games in quotes here because I'm just using it as a way to tell anecdotes about my trip, but there it is. So the first game that we played was called Expired Driver's License. Here's a quick overview. Say your driver's license expired in the middle of June of this year, but the Illinois governor granted a blanket extension on driver's license expirations until August 1st. So you've been lazy and haven't gotten your driver's license updated yet. Here's the twist. You're going on a trip and you need to rent a car. Now, sure, your spouse could drive the car, but your spouse doesn't like driving in places that they aren't familiar with. So now you're stuck with an expired driver's license, going to another state, and you have to rent a car. So the way I won this game is that I printed out from the Illinois DMV website the press release in which they explained that all expired driver's licenses are hereby forthwith extended to August 1st, and bring that printout with me. And the hope is either the person taking the rental car information doesn't notice that my license was expired, or notices and then accepts my explanation of, hey, look, the governor extended the expiration dates. Or if they don't trust that, I could say, hey, go look at the Illinois DMV website itself. It says it right on there. Or if they didn't accept that, then my wife would have to drive, and it would have been, I would have been declared the worst planner of vacations ever. But option 2 was it. I handed over my license, and the rental check-in lady said, do you have an extension for this license? Which told me that they have a process by which they can approve extended license, which just told me I'm fine. I said, the Illinois governor extended all expired licenses till August 1st. Here's the press release about it. And she just typed some stuff in the computer and went on her way. So, huzzah. First game, expired driver's license. I'm a winner. Oh, by the way, in case you're wondering how I flew, I brought my passport with me. I did not trust the TSA to take my printout from the website the way I was hoping the car rental company would. So I also brought my passport. All right, our second game, where can we eat? For those of you following the national weather news, Monday of last week, June 28th, was a very hot day. And by very hot, I mean the sun drifted out of we drifted out of our orbit and passed within a mile of the sun. And it got closest to Portland, Oregon. Well, not quite, but Portland, Oregon got 116 degrees on Monday, on that day. And that's the hottest it's ever been there. And also hotter than recorded temperatures in places like Houston, I guess. I don't know if that's really true, but that's what I read. So that's the day we picked to arrive in Portland. Our plan was to drive downtown and find a place to eat and then go to Powell's Books, which is a massive bookstore I'm a bookstore fiend, so that sounded awesome. Well, we drove downtown and we parked the car, and then we started walking, and Jenny had picked this place, Jenny's my spouse, had picked this place to eat, and we got there and it was closed because of the heat. All right, no problem. This part of town's full of restaurants. Well, every restaurant we went to is either closed because of the heat or closed because it's Monday and they're a small run restaurant, and Mondays are the days they're not open. So finally we find this place that's open, and they're at an hour and 20-minute wait. And we're already hungry, so we're like, that's not gonna work. So then we said, well, Powell's has a cafe inside, we'll just go there. So we go to Powell's bookstore. For those of you who don't know, Powell's is a famous, massive bookstore in Portland. So we go to Powell's bookstore, and their cafe is closed. So we end up at a Starbucks where we got a couple big cold drinks and just whatever food they had that looked good. I had yogurt as my lunch. They didn't have any seating inside because in Portland, their restrictions about masks and everything are not as loose as they are in Illinois lately, so you can't eat inside or any of that. So we had to eat at their table outside. Fortunately, it wasn't in the sun, but still really hot. And then we went to Powell's and we browsed there for a while. And it wasn't, I mean, it was fun. It was great to be there, but we were both pretty exhausted from the sun. I went back and got the car and came back and picked Jenny up because she was not feeling great because of all the heat. Then we went to our hotel. So where can we eat? We did not do great on that first day. We did find a number of other great places to eat. We ate at this place called Coffee Girl on a pier in Astoria. That was quite lovely, or near Astoria. We ate at a brewing company on July 1st, where we met up with my friend Robert Lundgren, one of the co-hosts of the Forgot My Dice podcast, and his wife Joanna. We had a lovely dinner with them, got to meet them in person for a change, and have some delicious sort of brewery food. There were a couple other good places we went as well, a great Thai restaurant, great pizza, but that first day we did not do so hot on the where can we eat game. The next game I want to tell you about in our Portland adventure is called Snails and Slugs. So one of the things we wanted to do in Portland was go hiking. That was part of the idea of traveling to a more northerly destination in the summer, is that we could do some hiking. Now, while the first day felt like the underside of Satan's butt, the rest of the week was relatively pleasant in terms of temperature. The second day we went to Astoria, which was on the ocean and much cooler there. And then after that, the temperature was in the 60s and 70s for the rest of the week. So it was great. So we decided to go hiking. And this was, I think, Wednesday of the trip. And there were a number of different places we could go. But we went to the Audubon Society first, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a nature preserve near Portland where you can go hiking and see birds, mostly birds, and a few small forest mammals like squirrels and whatnot. But honestly, the thing we saw most were snails and slugs. For some reason, I don't know if it was the time of day that we were there or there's just so many of them that this is what they do, but throughout our we walked about 3 miles, maybe 2.5 miles of hiking in the Audubon Society paths, we encountered innumerable snails and slugs. And the snails look like snails you would draw in a cartoon. They have the big round spirally shell. They stick out, a little head sticking out with the big eyeballs on stalks. Just exactly what you would expect a snail to look like. The slugs are exactly like slugs we've seen before. When we took a trip to Northern California, we encountered banana slugs, which are a big part of the nature up there. And these are the slugs that we encountered throughout our walk in the Audubon Society trail. So during the walk, usually Jenny was in the lead, and that worked out great because she is much more observant than I am of things like snails and slugs on the ground. At some point we got changed around and I was in the lead, and I was walking and I hear a crunch, and Jenny goes, "Oh, Brendan." And we look, and sure enough, there's one less snail in the world because I can't watch where I'm going, and I had just squished it. Well, crushed it. You crush stuff that can crack, right? Yeah, so just destroyed. I felt real bad. And Jenny was able to wave her moral superiority over me for a good 20 minutes till she inadvertently stepped on a banana slug and squished that. So we each had one small animal murder on our hand. Like these mollusks. I know that snails are mollusks. I don't know what slugs qualify as. Whatever. We each accidentally squished one. So I would say we, as a co-op game, we lost. But that was snails and slugs. Overall, a really fun hike though. We kept hearing this owl and we were really hoping we would get to see it. We did not get to see any owls, but we saw a number of other birds and had a delightful walk. So that was snails and slugs. All right, the fourth game I want to talk about is called How Many Game Shops? Now this is a game in which you try to convince your significant other that it's important to visit as many game shops as you can and support local businesses by making purchases from them. Of course, you have to balance the fact that your significant other is less interested in visiting game shops than you are. And so, work to appease that person or raise their tolerance for game shops by spreading out the visits, but also by visiting similar shops that accord more closely with their personal interests. For example, bookshops. In other words, my wife really likes bookshops, so do I, but I also like game shops as well, and we both like comic shops too. So basically whenever we could, we went to a bookshop or a comic shop or a game shop, although we only ended up visiting 3 game shops. We know from our searches beforehand that there are 15 game shops or something in the Portland area, and we only visited 3. So I could have been more industrious about the visits, but 3 was really plenty. Unlike bookshops, where it's not uncommon to go to a bookshop and just find a completely different selection of material available, at game shops, there's a limit to how much stuff you're going to find at any game shop that is different than what you found at other game shops. You know, a couple good shops will have a variety of different things, and they won't have a complete overlap in material, but it often is very strong overlap. So by the time we got to the 3rd store, you know, I was really seeing a lot of things I had seen before at the other stores. Nonetheless, we did manage to finish. I think we visited 4 or 5 bookshops, 2 comic shops, and 3 game stores. I don't remember the names of the bookshops or comic shops. There were 2 bookshops in Astoria, I think 3 in Portland, and then the comic shops, there were 2 in Portland that we went to. And then the game shops, I did catch their names. The first one we went to is Guardian Games. Guardian Games was the biggest of the 3 stores, at least in terms of size. It was, I don't know what else biggest would mean. It was the biggest of the 3 stores. It had a kind of cavernous quality. The main shop area was really big with lots of shelves, enough games on their shelves to have them arranged in alphabetical order to make them easier to find, as well as a wide selection of collectible card games and role-playing games. And then they had a cafe, and they had a couple of back rooms that we didn't go into that I assume are for playing games. That was a great shop. I ended up buying a couple things. I picked up Agatha Christie's Death on the Cards. I picked up Friedman Friese's Flea, and I think we got Silver and Gold there as well. Flip and Right from Phil Walker Harding. The next place we went was Cloud Cap Games. We also went to that on Wednesday. That was a much smaller shop. No room for gameplay. Very friendly. All 3 stores were friendly. Really good employees. All 3 of them talked to my wife first, and in ways that were what you'd want from a friendly local game store, as opposed to the stereotypes of the way that bad game stores tend to treat women, presuming they're not gamers and whatnot. So Cloud Cap Games, really nice selection, a variety of games, both brand new, but they also had a fairly big used area, which was pretty good. Although I thought the prices were a little high there were a couple of used games. So I was like, oh, I might want to get that, but the price was probably double what I would expect to pay on a used game. But maybe I'm just stingy about my used games. And they had a cool rental area. So they had all these games that were held together with box bands, and you could rent them. I think it was $5 for 3 days, something like that, which sounds like a really nice system, especially for somebody like me. I like to try out games. Having a game rental place available would probably save me a lot of money. Overall, a nice store, and I saw a copy of the XYZ Game Labs game Arch Ravels there at Cloud Cap Games, and I picked up a copy of the adventure games The Dungeon, which is a game that we've been playing. We started the Volcano Island one, and so that was fun to find. The 3rd game shop we visited was the Portland Game Shop, which was a little bit north, and that area was really nice. We found a kind of unexpected comic shop while we were out walking around there, and a cool chocolate place called the Chocolate Lab or something like that looked delicious, although they didn't really have as much chocolate stuff as I would have liked. We did buy some chocolates from there, and they're good and weird, but I would have liked to see a more elaborate chocolate option there. The Portland Game Shop was good. It was small, again, a little bit bigger than Cloud Cap Games, but it did not have the warehouse feel of Guardian Games. Very good selection, a wide variety of titles that I hadn't seen before, although I would say the smallest selection of titles available for on sale of the 3 stores we went to. They had a really nice display of the sort of high-end games. They were all faced, so they were sticking out, or face out along this one wall, which made them, it's really fun to browse. It was, I think, the first time that I had seen Cloud Age in a store, Alexander Pfister's Cloud Age. which has gotten middling reviews. So it sounded neat at the beginning, but it drifted out of my interest zone. And a number of really interesting two-player games. I really had to struggle with what to pick up there. I almost got Mandala from Wolfgang Kramer, but I ended up getting Nanga Parbat from Steve Finn. In part because I'd never seen Nanga Parbat before. Also because I like a game with a little bit of theme, and Mandala, the theme is so thin as to be, it's just an abstractor, it feels like one. So that was the Portland Game Shop. We went there on July 1st, the Thursday. So that was how many game shops can I visit? The last game I wanted to tell you about that I played in Portland was Efficiency Driver. Whenever you rent a car, you always have to think about how the gas works, and it's always a little bit different. I have to say getting gas in Oregon was a little intimidating because they have a law that says you can't pump your own gas. So when you buy gas in Oregon, you have to pull up to the pump and then somebody pumps it for you, which is super weird. But anyway, that's the way it works. So we had our gas pumped, and so we're driving to these waterfalls. There was a day where we went and saw 3 different waterfalls that are all kind of in the same area. They're in this big Portland State Park. The scenic highway in the Columbia River Canyon, I think it's called. So we saw 3 different falls. Multnomah Falls, which is tall and thin, really beautiful. Bridal Falls, which is a short, wide fall that looks a Bridal Veil fall. The Bridal Veil, it looks like a bridal veil. It's a wide cascade of white water coming down. And then we went to the third one. I can never remember the name, Lutinol or something like that. It starts with an L. Falls, and that one's kind of in between the two. It's a little taller than the Bridal Veil, but a little wider than Multnomah. So 3 really beautiful waterfalls that we went to. However, on the drive out, I overestimated how much fuel we had. And so while we were driving around the waterfall area, which is in the middle of this park reserve, and so there's no gas stations, suddenly the car tells me we have 37 miles till we're out of gas. And we were not super close to any towns. So I had a little bit of a panic attack there because I didn't realize we were that close to running out of gas. And then we checked our mileage and we found we were about 20 miles from a gas station, all told. So it ended up not being a big deal. We just, when we were done looking at the waterfalls, we drove straight to the gas station and it was fine. But there is a bit of anxiety or intensity in trying to figure out how to navigate that waterfall. So that was our trip to Portland. Lots of really fun stuff we saw, lots of fun stores to visit, mostly just nice to get away with my spouse and spend a bit of time, just the 2 of us. If you are married and can make the chance to do that, my wife and I do that. We try to do it about once a year, maybe every 18 months or so. We'll take a long weekend at least, sometimes 4 days if we can manage. Leave the kids with a grandparent and go on a trip together. So if you can do it, you should do it. It's great. So I guess I'm curious, what kind of games do you play when you travel? What are some of the games I might have played that I forgot to articulate here? Of course, again, we're talking sort of symbolically. When I say games, I mean activities that we can kind of classify as games. Head on over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let me know your experience with stuff like that. Or if you've been to Portland, let me know what you think of it. Do you have fun there? What things should I have seen that I missed? I totally didn't mention. We went to Astoria. We went to the place where some of the spots where they filmed The Goonies and got pictures. I got a picture of myself holding my head in front of the kindergarten cop school. You get it? Not a tumor. We went down to the beach. Lots of really neat stuff in Astoria. That was fun. Yeah. So what kinds of things would you do if you took a trip to Portland? Or what kind of games do you play when you travel? If you don't want to share on the guild, but you want to get in touch with me, you can send me an email, brendan@rattleboxgames.com. Or if you're interested in playing an asynchronous game with me online, I play games on Board Game Arena, Boitaju, and Yukata.de. You can find me on any of those platforms with the username Wombat929. Send me a message and we can play a game. Until next time, thanks for joining me today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.